on my way down the aisle. After Carlos' proposal to get married, I talked it over at home and started making plans. But little did I suspect that from that first physical encounter, a new life had begun to grow in me, until the faults in my period confirmed it. As a result, the date of October 20th was confirmed and what it would really be. But that life that was beginning did not have the opportunity to grow and come into this world. 2 months of pregnancy was all it got. One weekend, when Carlos and I went to visit a colleague and friend of his at the Panticosa Spa in the Pyrenees, I began to have discomfort in the morning, small pains in the lower part of my abdomen, which at first were nothing more than annoying and honestly did not create an alarm to worry me, but they were insistent and did not disappear. We arrived in Panticosa. It was September, and the place fascinated me. I had never been there before, and in addition to the wonderful landscape that surrounds it, the complex retains the charm of when it was built. Although it dates to Roman times, its peak occurred in the 19th century when the main buildings and gardens were built, and it keeps the charm of that stage of history intact between those walls and promenades. Although enjoying the day, the pain did not cease, and little by little I felt it growing and bothering, already creating concern in me and in Carlos. With all their goodwill and that of his friend, they suggested aspirin to soothe the pain without knowing what was really going on. I took it, hoping to find relief. Little did I know at the time that aspirin can accelerate a miscarriage because it is an anticoagulant. And so it happened. The pain became more unbearable, and I started bleeding. We quickly decided to return to Zaragoza and go to the Hospital Clínico, where a friend of Carlos was practicing the gynecology and obstetrics residency. They examined me and concluded after a couple of tests that there was a pregnancy, but the fetus had died. I was terrified. My mother knew what was happening, but my father never knew. For him, everything was a mess during my period. That same afternoon, I had a curettage that is necessary to clean the place where the fetus sits and avoid subsequent infections. It was my first time in an operating room, and I was scared to death. Carlos was a great support, always by my side. I had to go home that same night, which was not easy because the anesthesia was like a slap on me, from which I could not seem to recover. And my father could not know what happened to me in any way that would have brought unimaginable consequences for me and my mother. That same night, half groggy, I said to Carlos, "If you want, you don't need to marry me anymore, or at least not on October 20th. To which he replied, "The date still stands. We will get married on October 20th. That showed me in the first instance that Carlos really loved me, that he wanted to share his life with me for me, not because of an unplanned pregnancy. Shortly afterward, we went to meet his family in San Sebastian, a beautiful city in the Basque Country. He, as well as his entire family, was originally born in Zaragoza, but they went to Donostia, San Sebastian, when Carlos was only 8 years old, for reasons of his father's work. And that is and has been his city and his land ever since. I had never been to the north of Spain, especially in the Basque Country, and I was amazed and in love with the landscape, the atmosphere, and the city of San Sebastian from the first moment my eyes fell on it. The Cantabrian Sea is another sea with a personality unlike any other known sea. In my case, until then, the Mediterranean. Its character merges and complements completely with that of the inhabitants of the wonderful Basque Country. It is temperamental, strong, full of riches, benevolent at times, but full of power in the gale. I am a great lover of the sea and everything that makes you feel. peace, emotion, admiration. But nothing compares to seeing the waves of the Cantabrian Sea crash against the breakwater and jump many meters high. It's overwhelming and magical at the same time. I met Carlos' parents, his aunt and his sister, who is the same age as me. Also to some friends of my in-laws who were visiting there from Zaragoza. Everyone was very kind and courteous to me, except my future mother-in-law, about to dislike me from the first moment, and I think she always did, or at least that was what she transmitted to me during 16 years I shared with her son. First of all was the fact that we got married just 3 months after we met, which I could understand because Carlos came from another long relationship that did not end well, and his mother thought that I was a rebound. But after years of being happy, giving her precious grandchildren, and playing my role as wife, mother, and housewife to the best of my ability, she never showed me affection, and what is worse, respect. But I don't hold a grudge against her, and I treasure the things I learned from her. Another bad pill that Carlos and I found was that we both lost our jobs at the hotel where we met. In this way, we arrived at marriage, as they say, with what we were wearing. But we were not afraid of the prospect, and we went hand in hand into it. His grandmother agreed to let us live in her flat where Carlos had lived until then, until we could get our own home. So at least we had the issue of a roof over our heads resolved. On returning to Zaragoza from San Sebastian, a last and definitive blow fell on me. After bringing a typical fish from the Cantabrian Sea to my parents' house to try, thanks to my father's drunkenness and his bad temper, he said when he ate the fish that it was rubbish for not using the real word that came from his lips. I tried to explain that it has a bit of a strong flavor because it is a fish that feeds on shellfish. Something I never learned with my father is that you couldn't contradict him. And I couldn't accept that if something was white, they wanted to convince me that it was black. So in front of my future husband, he made a tremendous sin and threw me out of the house, never to return, just 15 days before the wedding. My mother told him that if I left, she will come with me. And there we left him, with his bottle and his pride that at that time were almost the only things that he fed in. Thanks to God and to my paternal grandmother, who was still alive, and whom my father had also exiled from his life and our house after my grandfather died, we had a roof over our heads in his house until the wedding day. There I got dressed for my wedding, and from there I left for the church. Of course, he did not come that day, and I would not have had anyone to take me to the altar if it had not been for my dear brother, who was then stationed in the Bardenas Reales with the Air Force, who obtained a permit to walk me down the aisle. So even though you see a smile on my face that day, my soul cried and cried out for a father who was getting drunk in a bar on the corner of my house while his daughter was saying I do and starting a new life.